Hello, everyone. Welcome to the EA Global Summit 2020. And we are in day 3 of the summit. We had an exciting 2 days with several interesting presentations and a number of conversations in our community channel. So this is Nizam from the organizing team. And with us, we have Arshad, who's a Sparx EA consultant from Sparx Systems India, and is a specialist in customizing EA. And he's going to present on one of the most exciting features of EA in the recent times, which is called model add-ins, which will let us do no installation add-ins in EA. And he's going to take a deep dive on how to execute and how to implement a model add-in. So a quick note on how to interact with Arshad or ask questions. Please log your questions for this session in the Teams channel, which we'll be sharing in your chat window. Arshad and the team will be available in the Teams channel to answer your questions or even provide you more references or details as you may need. So we'll be sharing this link in the chat window, and please feel free to ask or reach out to us if you have any difficulty accessing the channel. With that said, we welcome you all once again for this event, and thanks, Arshad, for joining us. Over to you now.
So thanks, Nizam. Hello, everyone. Thanks for joining this session. And this is Arshad from Sparx Systems India. So today in this webinar, we will be looking at model add-ins, feature in Sparx EA, which was available from the version 15. So the overall idea of today's session will be like how the automation, Nizam, is my screen is
we can see your screen.
Like,
yes, we can see your screen. Please go ahead.
Sorry. So the overall idea of today's session will be like how the automation plays a major role in an organization, and what are the hurdles faced during the implementation of some automations, and then the introduction to model add-ins and how it helps to overcome the difficulties and the challenges which are faced during the implementation of the traditional add-ins. So the agenda for the day is like, first we will be having a glance of automation in EA and how it enables seamless access to manipulate the contents programmatically. And next, we will be looking at the capabilities and the complexities faced in the development and the deployment stage of the traditional add-ins. And then we will be moving into today's topics like model add-ins, why it's needed and its nuances, with a step-by-step procedure of how these add-ins could be created or configured in a repository. And finally, a quick demonstration of the model add-ins, followed by conclusions. So coming into automation, I guess every EA user may already be aware and familiar with the term automation. The automation engine in EA has got extremely powerful capabilities, which helps EA users to leverage with EA's functionalities. Also, the automation engine gives access to extend the tool with more customized requirements, and these automations are one of the widely used to enhancing its core features. And it even provides the capability to integrate contents from a wide range of disparate tools. So not only with the standard local model, it even gives the complete access to the database contents, which is configured in some repositories. And I'm pretty sure that every environment in an organization might have got automated at least one functionalities from EA to make things more convenient and easier for the users. So how do we actually use the power of automation? So these automation interfaces in EA can be enabled through traditional add-ins and also through some scripting environments. So next we'll be looking at some of the samples of how the traditional add-ins can be used. Like so these are some of the list of frequently customized core functionalities in EA. So even though all these core features have some significant standalone capabilities, but automation helps in enhancing the features further. So for example, like extending custom user interfaces, or like creating document generations or hybrid document generations, or like creating some complex reports, or even in automating things like automating HTML publish or automating any document generations or something like that. And also in the part of import and export, it supports a wide range of formats to import and export contents into EA. So also the automation will help will help mainly in validating, adding specific model validation rules, or even creating more custom MDG based add-ins, and even can be automated through the search queries. So these are some of the frequently customized functionalities in EA. So next, we'll be looking at how these traditional add-ins actually work. So almost for 2 decades, these conventional add-ins help EA users to leverage with its functionalities. Why are these conventional add-ins so popular? Like, because it simplifies the usage of the EA simplifies the usage of EA features. So not getting too deep into this, but I would like to highlight some of the components in the traditional add-ins. Like EA supports a wide range of programming languages to develop these add-ins, and by default, Sparx provides a lot of sample add-ins for quick-starting these development. And also, there is plenty of EA add-ins already available in the market over years, which can be readily used to customize and extend most of the functionalities in EA. Though the development process of these add-ins are so familiar with the EA users, but I would like to share some of the few dependencies which is required in this traditional add-ins development, like some prerequisite tools like an IDE or some code editors, and even to make these add-in communicate or to work in EA, the framework requires certain steps like building a DLL or some creating an entry element where all the implementation should be done based on the top of EA's interop file provided. And finally, these complete development needs to be registered in some commentaries to notify the EA environment that some add-in has been added to this model, like something like that. So everyone may think like, why would I need to go for some other add-in framework or model add-ins when I've already got plenty of examples with these conventional add-ins? So here comes the complexities which are faced in the development stage of these conventional add-ins. For example, so the first thing is like packaging, then the distributing and deployment. So these are all the key components involved in the process of the conventional add-ins or traditional add-ins. So we'll be digging a little deeper in each of these points, like packaging. So packaging the adding is nothing but bundling the developed components to distribute and deploy it across the users. So these bundling includes building a DLL or like creating some commentaries, and also creating an installer, which is most required in most of the cases to deploy or to share the add-in across the team members with some minimal efforts, right? So then comes the distribution part, where we need to share the complete package across the team members put up in various locations. It will be like if an organization has EA installed in 20 or some 30 plus machines, then distributing the add-in across the machine, across the various machines will be so complicated. So, and the next is the deployment part, where the EA users in a team needs to install the add-in to the machine individually, right? So these includes they need some admin level privileges or some security permissions like that, because EA needs the permission to modify the programs. So the worst part is getting these permissions individually for all the team members across various locations. Like so literally we need to get these security permissions, or what are the permissions for all the 30 plus EA environments to get the add-ins deployed for the EA users. So that's how the process works now. So will that be an end to it? Obviously it won't, right? Because the application will always be evolving, so does our add-in also. So what if the add-in requires a simple change, or it could be any simple change, like a simple text change? The updates needs to be passed to the developer. then the changes need to be applied, and again the add-in should be packed, distributed, and then developed across the users. So in simple terms, the complete process from packaging to deploying must be done again after each changes. So won't that be an overhead for an organization with a huge team, huge EA users? So completing this process each time not only includes the development time, but also includes a lot of uh, time and cost efforts. So here comes the model add-ins. So comparing to the conventional add-ins, these model add-ins are so light, powerful, can be easily developable, and it's quite easy to deploy, and even it's so maintainable. So anyone with some basic knowledge in EA scripting framework can easily develop these model add-ins. So what's so special in these model add-ins? As in the name, they are completely specific to a single repository. So basically, all the activities involved in the add-in development, like whether it could be a scripting or configuration or whatever which is related to the add-in development, will be stored inside the single model. So this even gives the advantage to share the add-in across the team members with too minimal efforts. So whoever has the permission to access the repository can make use of the add-in without any licensing or some permission worries. So how does it actually work? How does this work? It works on a combination of attributes, operations, signals, and finally the receptions. So everyone may already be familiar with what attributes and operations does generally in EA, so I'm not getting into that point. So I would like to relate each of these components with the model added. So basically, all the common properties which we will be using in our add-in will be configured in the attributes, and all these events configuration or like scripting language configuration or some methods to process the add-in, all those configurations will be added in the operations part. And then the signals. Signals are as similar to the normal element, but it's of type signals. It defines the behavior of the add-in. Like it was in simple words, they are like of the broadcast events. Like it has some add-in events or broadcast events. So it defines the behavior of the add-in, and these receptions are the feature of the element which is used in the model to receive the signal. So let's get a little deeper into these signals and receptions. So what is a signal reference library, like or signals, let it be signals. So it is a collection of broadcast types provided by Sparx to make it use in the add-ins. So which is also used to define the functionalities of the add-in. So these events or these broadcast events configurations are also available, are also required in the traditional add-in development. So how these signals and receptions play a role in these model added development process is like as in the traditional framework, as you can see in the diagram. So as in the traditional frameworks, even model added requires an entry point. So where the communication between the EA and the add-in should be implemented, something like that. So and that is done through a specific stereotype called JavaScript add-in. So this is the specific stereotype which Sparx recently added in the latest versions to model these to develop these model add-ins. So all the configurations related to the add-in, like whatever configuration, like properties or receptions or signals, everything should be inside this single element. So basically, this single stereotype element defines the behavior and the functionality of our add-ins with the help of these signals and receptions. So to make use of receptions, it needs to be configured with a single signal at least. So basically, these receptions depends on signals, and these signals are used to pass the EA events to the add-in based on the configurations of the signals. So EA will be communicated. So that's how the EA will communicate with the model add-ins. So that's an overview of the configuration part. So now let's see a step-by-step procedure of how to build or configure the model add-ins in our repository. So model add-ins, as I said earlier, model add-ins doesn't require any specific or dependencies like code editors or anything for this development process, but it just accept EA. So EA and a model should be loaded for this development. So as a first step, we need to make sure, so all the broadcast events, these are the broadcast events which Sparx provides for the add-in development, and these events should be available in the model prior to the development. So these events can be created from using the model wizard under the model section package. You can see the entire list of broadcast events, and we just need to create it into the model. And next, once the signals has been configured, we need to create an entry point of the add-in. So to communicate with EA, right? So to define the entry point, Sparx provides a special stereotype. This is where the stereotype as JavaScript add-in, and this stereotype can be found under the toolbox model add-ins. So all the development activities related to the model add-in should be done on top of this stereotype. So basically, this stereotype is like the core component of our model add-in. So manipulating the stereotype with some unwanted modifications or some changes, unwanted changes may result in crashing our model add-in. So also deleting the specific stereotype from the model will completely remove the trace of add-in from the entire model. So once the entry point has been defined, so how do once all the entry points has been defined, so how do we make EA to communicate with our add-in? So that's where the reception comes in. Like all the required events should be added in the reception. So you can see, so basically in the elements feature, you can find reception similar to attributes and operations. Receptions is where we will add all our broadcast events, which will be used to communicate with EA. So adding a new reception in this part is like similar to adding an attributes or operations. By clicking that, you can see we will have a list of broadcast events which we have imported earlier. So this is how we will add a new reception. So for example, if our add-in requires if our add-in requires something like some two menus and a menu click option, then it is mandatory to have the get menu items and the menu click events. So that's how the reception. So these are all the configuration parts which needs to be done in the add-in part. So once the configuration part has been done, we need to add some scripting to make the add-in functional, right? So that's where EA's code editor comes up. So this editor is an inbuilt feature from Sparx, which is similar to any other code editors inspired of these. It even has some wonderful features like language highlighting options or some recording macros. It has some features like major of the code editors. So all the scripting related to the model should be created inside this editor. So this editor can be found under the develop the menu option through the behavior window. So not only the codes, even the configurations like operations, receptions, or whatever the add-in related functions that can, the UA also provides the feasibility to add those configurations directly from inside the code editor actually. So we will see a little demonstration of how these code editors and these add-in behaves in next couple of minutes. So this is a sample illustration of how the entry element of our add-in will be looking in the behavior editor. So you can see it has one end with some configured operations or receptions, which we have configured in our main stereotype element, and the other end with the codes which we have done for the functional. So once all these all these configuration and the scripting points has been completed, but how do we enable these add-in in the model. So that's quite simple as our regular traditional add-ins. So once the code stereotype has been added, you can find it under the manage add-ins window. And to differentiate between the traditional and these model add-ins, you can see the status for all the model add-ins will be as optional. So for enabling is also quite simple. Like you can just select the load and startup option over here to just enable this add-in to the model. So before going into a little demonstration, I would like to brief what we will be looking in the demonstration. Like basically, we will be developing a simple hello world add-in with some custom dockable windows similar to the EA's properties window, and that properties window has some custom functions like it will display some summaries and reference details and some collaboration details, and also along with some recently modified diagrams. So now let's move into add-in. Let me open my EA. So for this quiz section, what I've done is, so I've already loaded all the model contents in EA prior to this session. So as you can see, there are three packages. So this is the main package where we have this stereotype element, and this is the broadcast type which we have created through model wizard, and this is the sample data which we use to test our add-in. So first, how do we import these broadcast? It's as explained in the sheet. Like you can import all the broadcast types using these model wizard. Like clicking the model wizard, you can find the list of model wizards, and you selecting this and creating patterns will import all the broadcast types to this model. So once the model has been loaded, we need to make sure we have added the core component. Like so this component we can find it under the model add-ins toolbox. Here there will be an stereotype called JavaScript add-in. So basically creating this element will have similarly something like this. So this is the, as I said earlier, this is already a pre-configured model which I've created for this webinar. So I don't want to mess up with the real-time models over here. So this is a sample add-in. So here you can see the attributes and the operations and the receptions which I've added in our in this model. So here in this features window, you can see all the list of attributes and the operations and the receptions which we have configured for our model add-in. So similarly, clicking add new reception, it will filter with just the types of signals, and you can select any one of the signals over here from which we have created earlier. So once all the configurations has been done over here, we need to do some scriptings, right? So that can be found under the develop menu, and by selecting behavior, you can see all the configurations which I have done for that element will be in the left side. So this is how this is the code editor's behavior. So it will preload all the configurations of that element, but the coding script, the scripting for the add-in should be done over here. Here you can see that for menu items, I have like my add-in, and choosing my add-in should display some more menus like print, hello, about, something like that. And this is where the context change item. So based on the context change item, a new custom dockable window will be added here. So these are the functions for that. So I'll explain what I've done in this course while enabling this add-in. So also you can see, as I have highlighted earlier, so this code editor also has some features, some major features like syntax highlighting or other code editor options or event recording macros. These are some of the features of the inbuilt code editor. So once all these configurations has been done, now I would like to enable this add-in to the model. So how do I enable it? So you can see in the specialized ribbon, there isn't any add-ins available as of now. So what I'll do is I'm going to enable the add-in which we have created. So you can see the list of add-ins which are already available in the model. So this is the model add-in which we have created for this session. So you can easily identify it with the status is optional. So all the model add-ins will be having status as optional. So this unique name has been added here from this JavaScript element. This stereotyped element. So as you can see now, there are no add-ins available in the model. So enabling it makes sure that there are some add-ins. So now let's go into this get menu items. So here you can see like I have three menus like print, hello, and about. So these menu items are fetching from this section of the code. And then I can tell, hey, in the menu click, I have said like, hey, if I press print, hello world should be pop up, like something like that. So what I'll do is, you can see when I click the print, you can see the hello world is popping up. So next, the part is like that custom dockable window. So you can see these custom dockable, creating the custom dockable window function has been handled in the EA's context item changed event. So what I will do is I will go to our test data and just click it, and you can see a new window over here with all these basic details which we have designed in our model add-ins. So based on the context item change, these events, these values will be updated. So let's, this is a sample model which I got from EA's example file. So here you can see if I click class A, it will just update with the class name and its basic Qt. And you can hear in the reference detail, you can see the diagram counts or something like connector counts and even discussion counts. And these are the diagrams which are recently modified today. So how we can confirm the diagram counts, like what I'll do is I will just do a find in all diagrams. So you can see this class A is available in 2 diagrams. So this count is updated over here correctly. So then we can see in the traceability that class A is connected with 2 elements, class B and class C. And these these count has also been updated here. So as in the collaboration, we can see there are no discussions yet for this element. So the element count is 0. So what I have done is I have created some more additional details for this class B. So here you can see the diagram count is 2 and the connector details are 4. And that is one discussion for this element. So you can see that I have the discussion created for this class B. And also I have some more class elements connected with this class B. So like basically what it does is I'm just updating all these elements on the context change, and I'm fetching these elements details and writing it to the custom dockable window. So that's what we are doing in this build summary. So this is the method we are used to build the summary details, and this is used to build the reference detail, and this is the method used to build the collaboration details, and this is for the recently modified diagram. So you can see all these are a separate method. I have put it as a separate method in these configurations. So let's go into how do I fetch these recently modified items? It is a simple query which we have running through with the help of Sparx feature. These are the default Sparx APIs. So I am running a query to fetch the top 5 recently modified diagrams in a day. So that's how these results have been fetching. So what I will do is I will just go. You can see here that there are only 2 diagrams available in the recently modified diagrams. So what I will do is I will just reposition this element and I will just save this diagram. And once save this diagram, you can see the recently modified diagrams has been updated with the recent changes too. So that's a simple. So doing this process in a traditional add-in requires a huge time effort actually, but this add-in is built in a couple of hours to make it functional. So basically the entire add-in, the entire configuration of the add-in will be in this model, which is named as sample add-in. So that's it. So if I want to, anyone who has the access to this sample repository can even make use of access of these add-ins. So if I need a simple change, like if I want to, what I will do is like, I want to change something and I want to reload the add-in. So what I'll do is I'll choose updated over here. I will just update the menu over here, and here you can see once if I save this function or this scripts, it won't get reflected in the add-in. So how to make it refresh or to make it reload, what we need to do is we need to enable the we need to go to the manage add-ins and we need to first disable it. So again, we need to enable it to reload the model add-in. So here you can see I have the add-ins menu has been updated. So that's all with the demonstration. So now let's move back into the slides. So like every other applications, even these model add-ins has some limitations. Like these limitations may vary based on the requirements actually. So the major limitation which I felt is like there isn't many languages option available for the development. Like there is availability for the traditional add-ins. Like as of now, only JavaScript is supported. So then comes the complex UI designing part. So as of so currently we can't create any complex or custom UIs with more custom controls or more navigation or more anything, any custom or complex controls is not supported as of now in this JavaScript engine. And regarding breakpoints, of course, the EA's behavior in the EA's behavior code, there are multiple ways to debug the code, but enabling breakpoint is not possible in this behavior. But there is an alternate to use the breakpoints. Like we can use EA's default scripting engine to write the code, to develop the code, and there we can use the breakpoint, something like that. And again, we can once all the development process has been completed, we can copy the entire sets of code and paste it back into the behavior. So as I said, there are some workarounds for these limitations. And finally, sharing the add-in. So here, this is one interesting part. So how do we share the model add-in across the repositories? So let me say, like, if I have developed the add-in in the repository 1, and how do I transfer the add-in to the repository 2? It's it's simple actually. It's like what we can do is we can export the complete information of the specific stereotype element which we have created for the model add-in from the repository 1, and we can import the element into repository 2, just an XML export, and then again import in the other repository. So this XML export and import helps transferring the model add-ins from one repository to the other repositories. So that's all for the session. But I'll also like to summarize the model add-ins. Like they are easily developable, deployable, and configurable comparing to the traditional add-ins. And distributing the add-in across the repositories are more simpler, can be done with no extra efforts. So then these model add-ins are completely maintainable and self-documented, as all the information related to the model, repository, add-in, everything will be in a single model. And also, it doesn't require any prerequisites like the traditional add-ins, like any other tools or anything. Except EA, it doesn't require any other tools for this add-in development. And finally comes the, at the moment, creating an expressive or some complex user interfaces are not possible in this model add-in. So these are some of the conclusions of this session, and that's all with the session.
Thank you, Arshad. Thanks for a very useful session. I think this will really help, because add-ins have been a very valuable part of the EA deployment. Like most of us who've been using Enterprise Architect would have at some point done some automation. That's one of the core strengths of EA, its ability to be expanded and extended for a particular purpose. But we have always seen a bit of challenges when it comes to deploying to the end users' machines, because it's limited by administrator privileges, or it could be a challenge in repackaging it along with the setup. And the model add-ins for sure changes it by making it model driven. So there was a change a couple of years back where enterprise architect allowed MDGs to be included in the repository instead of being installed in the user's machine. And that change was in itself a remarkable difference in the way we used MDGs. And this model add-in is along the same lines, is for sure going to help a lot of us users who've been using EA for a while to have a continuous improvement and deploying add-ins to the end users. So thank you very much for giving us a detailed in like steps on how to do it and how to deploy it. It would be worth if you could share your example model with the audience as well. So I'm sure you'll be sharing this example model and we'll make it available to the users. I think we have to thank you from on behalf of all the attendees for taking efforts to put up an example like this. We have a few questions that has come up. For most of the questions, we have requested attendees to interact with you in the Teams channel. But given that we have a few minutes left, do you mind providing your response for a few questions? So the first one was, is it possible to use EA scripting engine to develop such model add-ins?
Yes, it is possible for the development, but at the end, to make it functionally work in the model add-ins, it needs to the complete codes from the scripting engine needs to be imported into the behavior editor. So that's how the model add-ins only identifies the code which are available in the behavior editor.
Okay, so it's a model-driven add-in, which is done using signals and receptions that's been modeled out. So even if you can use the EA scripts, we should be taking those scripts and pasting it or like inserting it in the right place to make it work.
Yep.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay. Thank you. So another question was, does model add-in support extending EA's functionalities? Pretty much like how the add-ins does. For example, we have the events and broadcasts in the add-ins, which will let us, for example, overwrite element creation or element modification and things like that. Is it possible to do such things using model add-ins?
Yeah. It's completely possible. So all the events which are supported in the traditional add-ins, like overriding a functions or methods, or accessing the EA's APIs, EA's class properties. So everything is possible inside the model add-ins as well.
Okay, so that's very good to know. I think most of the EA, I mean, of course, add-ins are for people who are advanced users of EA. It's not for someone who have just started to explore. But once we get into a regular EA practice, we for sure would be looking at avenues to automate. And the strength of EA in making its APIs available has always been one of the very positive factors from this, from the user's perspective. I guess model add-ins is yet another way of exploring it and expanding it. I guess it was quite handy. There are more comments. I think we have requested them to be interacting with you in the Teams channel. So yeah, I think that's it from us from now. Thank you very much for joining us and sharing your presentation. And we thank all attendees for your time to attend this session. Please connect with Arshad in the Teams channel and please ask your questions, or if you need more references or examples, Arshad will be able to share some sample models or more insights on where to look for help in the Enterprise Architect User Guide. Thank you once again, everyone, and thanks, Arshad.
Thanks, everyone.